this is Tina from Shabbydabbydoodah. Welcome back to my channel. So if you saw my recent mass making, we mass made some journal covers, and I have continued actually since the end of that video, and I have made a few more journal covers, but I haven't stitched them yet. So I'm just going to kind of, you know, work with the covers that we actually did during that video. We might not get, you know, time to do many more than just the one, but that's absolutely fine. So what I thought we'd do is we will start with the patchwork one, because that's the one that I kind of suspect, you know, is you know, going to be most problematic, because obviously we've got all the stitching now on this reverse side. So I'm going to move these two covers. Now these were the other two that we did stitch during the mass make. So got this one here, which is the, like the rough edge, what I would call the rough edge, and we've got this one here which we kind of folded in and made the kind of more neater kind of edge around there. So I'm just going to put those to one side. If we get time, we can obviously kind of, you know, do those. So what I would do is, and I've probably kind of changed my style slightly from when I did this mass make previously, I probably would actually patchwork or collage the inside of this front cover as well. Now that's not a hard and fast rule or anything, but that's what I've kind of been doing more recently. So in the previous video, I think when we did the, you know, using the mass make covers, what I did was I bound the journal and then I just collaged, you know, each side. But what I'm going to do now, and what I have been doing more recently, is I collaged the entire thing and then fold it over and obviously stitch my signatures in. So I've got a whole bunch of papers here that I can use to kind of collage. Now, obviously I want to really try and stick with the types of colours that I have got. So we've got, you know, pinks and greens and things. So I'm just going to pull in these. Now, it might be that I haven't really got suitable colours, but we'll, you know, we'll just kind of see. Now, a bit of a tip really as well for, you know, if you're going to be collaging and then using this, is if you noticed when I kind of collaged the outside, what I tried to do was where I'm going to be folding, i.e. here, I tried not to have any kind of pieces of fabric that are going to end on the fold. So that's exactly what I would do here on the inside as well. So I would perhaps start my collage like here, for example, in the middle. And then when that folds, I know that I've got no kind of tricky edges going here. So if I just kind of put this one down. So I'm just going to use my Fabri-Tac that we were using, you know, during the mass make. So this is quite thick paper. You know, ordinarily I would probably choose to use slightly thinner paper for collaging, but this just happened to be kind of the top of the pile, and I thought, well, actually it's quite a nice big piece, and it is shades of pink. So as you can see, I've put that straight where the fold line would go, if you see what I mean. So, you know, it's quite a large piece of paper. I haven't got any tricky kind of edges or anything like that. It's going to just kind of be the most durable. Yeah, that was what I was trying to say. You want to have the most durable kind of pieces here down your centre line. If you've got something like this, for example, a quite tiny piece, when it folds in, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you're going to just have kind of like a fold here, so you haven't got that much glued either side, so it could potentially be vulnerable. Or even worse, if your fold ended up, you know, that you've got a piece stuck here and then your fold was here, you could end up with this. Now that might not necessarily be a problem, because you might have managed to glue right down to the edge. But I just think to eliminate all kind of, you know, potential problems is actually, you know, glue over the centre as much as you possibly can, if that makes sense. So, you know, you then haven't even got that as a kind of potential issue. It's all, you know, it's all covered. So I've got this here. Oh, I've got quite a bit of the green and pink actually. So yeah, that's all fine. So I'm going to just use this. And again, what I'll do is I think just use this here. Now I have got a slight slight white border there, so I'm just going to cut that down here. Okay. This has been printed onto, you know, scrapbook paper. So yeah, it's just where I'm kind of like when I'm making the printables and I have to print them out obviously multiple times, I've just used, you know, the reverse of some scraps of scrapbook paper to print it onto. So, you know, it's all a good use of using up our papers, isn't it? Okay, oops. So, and I'm not sure that this actually has ever been made into a printable yet. This might still be one that I'm still currently working on. I can't recall that this actually made it into a kit, but this one here was the springtime papers. So like that. So we have definitely not got a problem now during, or not during, but you know, over the fold. So that's a really good kind of, yeah, just a good practice, I suppose, to get into, is just cover up your creased part as much as you possibly can. Now, I'm not sure that this is going to be, no, not really pink enough. So, okay, I've got some good green here. Okay, so I think just put this one down, maybe at the back. And obviously, you know, I'm not going to get too worried, she says, as she's, you know, fiddling around with this. But because obviously, you know, when I decorate the journal, it's going to have pockets and, you know, what have you on this page, or at least, you know, some ruffles and or lace or something. It's not going to just be kind of a bare collage that you're going to really see overly much. It's mainly going to be covered up, you know, like I say, be that with pockets or belly bands or, you know, something's going to be probably covering, you know, the bulk of this up. So, you know, I'm not going to kind of stress too much. If I've got kind of, you know, odd bits where, I don't know, they're not overlapping or something like that, I'm not going to get too worried. I'm just kind of covering basically so it's in a good state to use. So, and obviously what I'm doing is I'm tying in colours from the front. So, you know, we've used kind of greens and pinks, and now I'm going with the greens and pinks on the inside just for that sort of continuity, really. So, and you know, again, you don't have to do that. You know, you might decide that actually you like to have your covers completely different, you know, or maybe just sometimes you like to have your covers completely different. Sometimes you like them matching, and that's all fine. You know, as we always say, there's absolutely no rules. Junk journals are, you know, completely rule-free, and, you know, you can just do whatever suits you at the time. So don't get too kind of stressed and think, oh no, you know, that's now not going to match that. It really does not matter. You can just get away with, you know, put in whatever bits that you fancy putting down. So, I mean, like, that's quite pretty. And then let's just see, I've got some other sort of pinkish pieces, or green, or red, because I did have, I think, some red on that front cover as well. Oh, I mean, what are the odds of this having no pinks and greens and reds? I mean, what on earth? Oh, I've got this. I mean, I'm not saying it's quite ideal, but like I said just now, I'm going to try not to get too hung up on, you know, what's really a good piece or not. I'm just going to go for it. So there we go. Pop that piece down there. Again, that's another piece from the springtime pieces. And then this one here, this is from the Rose Park papers. So I'm just going to tear this down because I don't want that straight edge. Okay, and I have got a mixture of thicknesses. This is again another quite thick piece of paper. So I'm just, you know, just embracing the scraps I have. So the other thing that's quite nice, and I've only done this once or possibly twice, I think. I had a couple of really big fabric samples of some velvet, and I think just once, but it could have been twice, I have actually used like the velvet inside the front cover. So I think I covered like mainly like it went here, and then I had to fill in like the end piece with something else. But that was quite a lovely kind of, yeah, lovely way to decorate a cover. So, you know, kind of just play around and see what you've got. But you may, you know, you may want to kind of do something like that, you know, put some fabric in there or something. And, you know, like some of it's going to just depend what fabric scraps you've got at the time. I can't remember now what I did on that velvet inside of the cover. It was one of my earlier journals, I think, and I might have done it twice because it's ringing a bell that maybe I had a blue one that was velvet, and I also seem to recall doing it with a red, like a navy blue, and also a sort of reddy pinky colour or something. I'm not sure, but I can remember loving it, you know, loving it and thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to do that more. Well, of course, I never really kind of had any big enough upholstery pieces of fabric in reds after that. But if I had have done, I would have possibly done that because it did look very, very, very pretty. Yeah, so that was another quite nice alternative of, you know, how to cover the inside. Okay, oops, there we go. Just kind of finding some other little bits and pieces that have got reds and greens on, so. Okay. Something like that. I mean, I don't know really why, but for me, just the collage kind of look seems to just work really quite nice, I think, with these, you know, ready-made covers. And, you know, that's, again, like no hard and fast rules or anything like that. I'm just kind of saying, you know, some reason this is something that I seem to do quite often. So, you know, it's obviously something that I feel has looked good in the past. And, you know, again, not necessarily saying that just because I think it looks good that you will think it looks good, but, you know, just sharing things that I have found that I like, you know, that I like to kind of use together, or formulas and methods that I kind of think do kind of come together quite nicely. So for me, I think using like those pretty collaged outsides with like the fabric outside, doing a fun sort of collage but with paper on the inside, that just kind of makes it work quite well and gives you quite a lot of flexibility with you know, bringing your colours from the outside cover onto the inside of, or into the inside of your journal. You know, I just find that that's something that seems to work quite well. And like I say, just because I'm saying that, you know, I quite like that, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm saying that's how to do it or that's right or anything like that. I'm just kind of sharing things that over time I've kind of used a few times because I think they do work really well together. So that's my inside cover on the front. Just need to fill in this piece on the back. So, oops, just put that piece down there. Actually, just before I do it, just check that I wouldn't prefer this one. No, I think I quite like the just pink. I mean, I'm just filling in the blank, but like I said, I mean, to be honest, when it comes to using it, it may be that actually my pocket's going to cover up where I've got this gap anyway. So, you know, it might actually be that I needn't have worried here, but okay. And then here I've just got this area here, so just fill that in, maybe even just use this, which, you know, is tying in the front and the back quite nicely. Also using up that entire piece of scrap, which is, you know, always a good thing. So I can't really see, but I feel like this is upside down if I put it that way. So yeah, I think I'll have to put it this way. Okay, I'm just going to cut this across the top. Okay. So, I mean, it more or less covers up all of it. I have got a tiny little gap there, but like I said before, I'm not going to get too stressed about little teeny gaps because, you know, I mean, once your journal is kind of complete, you've got all your bits and pieces in, you know, this is not even going to be noticeable. Nobody's going to see anything, you know, that you deem as a kind of, oh no, I've got a gap in my collage right now. You know, you're going to have your journal so full of gorgeous, lovely things that, you know, things like maybe a millimetre gap that's there in my collage, that's not even going to be noticeable because obviously, you know, you're going to have an abundance of other things, you know, to feast your eyes on, not be drawn to, oh, I have a gap here, you know, that's just not going to come into it. So that is my cover now. So as you can see, I've got the collage on the front cover, and then I have got obviously collage, paper collage, so fabric cover on the front, paper collage on the inside. I'll just quickly have a sip of tea. Like that. And then you can just fold your cover like that. Just squish that down. Like that. Okay, and that's it. Now what you could do here to reinforce this further, and that's why I've said that, you know, in later kind of, you know, more recent times, that's why I have collaged the entire thing rather than, you know, stitch my signature in and then collage here, is because then you don't get the opportunity to kind of reinforce this with lace or with fabric or anything else. But you could then take some fabric or some lace or, you know, or another piece of paper or something and reinforce here down the spine, which you may like to do. So I'm just having a look on here. I'm seeing whether I've got any fabric left. Sorry, I just had to guzzle my tea down. I'm not sure that I have really, but if I take, it's probably not really the right colour. It's a bit drab, this lace, but I mean, I say drab on this particular cover because this is quite bright and, you know, vibrant colours, but actually, you know, it's a nice colour in a different situation, if you see what I mean. But it probably looks okay there, to be honest. So, you know, when you stitch your signature in, so I've just brought along like a handful of pieces of paper just to kind of demonstrate. So if I just take these pink ones, and then I've got some bluey greeny aqua type colour ones as well. So I'm just going to kind of fold these in, you know, just to kind of demonstrate really. Now, I have bound journals quite a few times with you guys, so I probably won't actually do that with you now, because, you know, it's probably a bit boring, to be honest, to see it again. I will try and find a video where I'm binding a journal and link it, so that if you haven't seen it, you can. But just to kind of show you how this would look. So obviously you'd have your lace there and then your pages. Now, I will kind of go over quickly my formula that, again, you know, just over time I've discovered works best for me. And to be honest, when I say works best for me, I've used this formula now for years, you know, for all of my journals for the longest time now. So it's not kind of like a, you know, a one-off or anything like that. I genuinely, you know, use this all the time. So these are my pink Parisian papers, which again I thought just went really nicely with the cover, with the, you know, this collage here, which, you know, we've just chucked this together. I haven't kind of spent ages matching it up or anything, but it looks pretty, doesn't it? So there are quite a few browns in this pink Parisian, so I won't necessarily use all of it, but this particular page, I think, and this one just look really, really pretty, don't they? So what I tend to do is I tend to use, for a soft cover journal like this, which, you know, is predominantly what I like to make, I tend to use 5 sheets of like A4 in a thick quality paper. So when I say a thick quality paper, I'm kind of talking like maybe, you know, 230 GSM or something like that. Now, again, it's going to depend what type of paper I use. So I've brought along a couple of others to kind of show you. So here, this is a 250, I think, GSM, or maybe 230. Food coloured paper. Okay, so this is thicker than normal paper. It's 230 GSM, but it's not printed. As you can see, it is a plain sheet. So it's not a photo quality paper or anything like that. It's just a thick kind of, you know, heavyweight paper. Okay, this has been printed on, again, a thick paper. So again, it's a 230 GSM, but this is a photo quality paper. Okay, so depending on, you know, am I printing or am I not printing, you could obviously dye the photo quality paper, but it's probably just a bit of an extravagant sort of waste of money, really, because obviously the photo quality paper is quite expensive. So, you know, therefore, maybe just have your thicker ones with the printed ones. And if you wanted plain thicker ones, use non-photo quality paper. So what I tend to use, and let's kind of cover this. So I've got here some other papers, which I thought, you know, potentially I could mix in with this. So on here, this is my postal collection, background papers, and you get this sheet in the pinks, which again, I thought looks really pretty, doesn't it, with this? And then I've put on the back this green kind of damask from my damask collection of papers. So I thought that was quite pretty. So again, this is printed on that thicker quality paper. So what I do is, as I say, I use 5 thick ones. So 1, 2. Then I mix them in with some flimsy paper. So here I've got, it's actually slightly thicker than normal quality, you know, photocopy paper. This is slightly thicker. I think normal photocopying paper is about 70 or 80 GSM. This one I think is like 102. So it's definitely a lot thinner than this. If I do that, hopefully you can kind of hear the difference. So I mix in the 2 thick ones, 3 thin ones. Then I take another 2 thick ones. So I'm going to just pull in another 2 thick ones. Now, unfortunately, this is where I've not been so prepared, because I'm now down to kind of misprints, really. So I've got this, which is from my French collection, and so is this. I don't know as they really go with the rest of the journal, but I had backed them onto, you know, other prints that I thought would go. So I don't know. Also, this was a misprint. So on here, I've got some, you know, some rubbish going on this side. But, you know, again, I mean, that doesn't really worry me because I could put a pocket on this page covering that up. It's just, do I want to have that brown, really? Do I or don't I? I'm not sure. Oh, the other thing that I have brought along is I've got some more of the French collection, but there's this one which has got a touch of green, and this has just been coffee dyed on the back. So, well, let's just go for this for the moment, just for kind of, you know, I'm not going to be binding this in anyway. So when I come to use it, I may, you know, may switch these papers out. But just for the purposes of showing you my formula. So we've got the 2 thick ones, 3 thin ones. Then I have another 2 thick ones, okay? So at this point, I could put in this, you know, plain sheet here as well. So we could have it like that. So we've got thin like that. So I might even put it that way round. Okay. Then I have another 3 thin papers. Okay. Like that. Now, when I say my thin papers, these are food coloured papers. I don't always use food coloured. You know, more often than not, I would use coffee dyed papers. So I never, ever tend to use white. And I know that's a sweeping statement, and I normally say never, but I really don't use white, I don't think, just bound into a journal. that's just personal preference, but you know, it is just something that I thought that I would just kind of throw out there, just while we're talking kind of papers, really. And then I put in the very center of the signature one final thick page. Now I'm now struggling to find which page I would use as my final thick page. So again, I think for the purposes of this journal, I'm just going to go with this. So again, this is my damask papers, and again, it's got some misprint going on here. I'm not that worried because actually it looks really pretty. But that would be the center of my journal. Okay, so that's my signature. So you've got 5 thick sheets mixed in, and I always do them in that formula that I showed you. So the 2 mixed with the 3 plain, mixed with the 2 thicks, mixed with the 3 plain or 3 thin, and then the center one as the thick one. That's just how I found it works best for me. And, you know, I'm not in any way saying that that's the best way to do it for everybody. I'm saying that's how I found works nicely for me. And then what you can do is obviously mix in with your thin pages. You could mix in some other sheets. So, for instance, you may want to take some tracing paper or maybe some greaseproof paper or something like that, and put it in amongst your plain papers. And again, I just like to put it that way round, i.e. in with my plain. Part of the reason is because if I put a bulky pocket on here with like some embellishments, and then I have lots of flimsy paper, so I have bulky here, flimsy here, and then bulky here, you're kind of giving this a lot of opportunity to get damaged. It's going to get kind of like, you know, pressed up with if it's got lumps and bumps there. Whereas if you have a bulk of thin paper pressed up against your bulky embellishments, it's almost kind of like protecting those pages, if you see what I mean. It's kind of giving them a bit of kind of padding. So that's kind of, you know, just how I found works best for me. And then you can also mix in things like, you know, your book page, which I had bought in some book page and now I can't see it anywhere. And I had also bought in some sheet music. And again, that now has disappeared completely. So lucky I'm not intending on binding this, isn't it? As I've mislaid half my stuff. So here, this is some vintage document. So as you can see, it's bigger than an A4 sheet. But I could take that in there, and then you could either fold this in so you don't lose any of it, and you just then, you know, bind it and you've got a, you know, fold out piece. Or you could obviously trim that down to fit. But again, I would slip that in with my plain papers. Now, I wouldn't do that with more than, say, maybe, you know, 3 or 4 sheets, because you're going to then have a problem when you come to stitch your signature in. But definitely, I would maybe add a sheet of doily, you know, a doily piece, you know, paper doily, maybe a sheet of vintage book page, maybe a sheet music, and, you know, maybe a tracing paper or, you know, vintage documents or something like that. And again, I would intersperse them. So I'd have a couple of things here in this, you know, this portion of the thinner papers. And then I'd go back here to this first few thinner papers and maybe put a couple of things in there. And that is literally it. Then I would obviously, you know, paper clip my signatures together, or, you know, bulldog clip them onto my cover here. And I use the 3-hole, you know, binding stitch to stitch them into my journal cover. So that is literally it. Like I say, I'm not going to run you through actually, you know, binding this, because I'm not even too sure that I've got the right combination of papers for this journal. Although, to be honest, now they do look pretty, you know, pretty nice in here. But I just wanted to give you a really thorough overview of how I would do that. So that's those. Obviously, like I say, I would have also stuck in my lace before stitching the signatures in. So I would put it here, or fabric, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to use. So in fact, let's just quickly put this in here now. so that, you know, you can see exactly what we're doing. So I just go down here and I try and kind of have a good portion of glue over the actual, you know, center part, and then obviously going down along the sides like that. Okay, and then take your lace and just lay it down over there, whoops, like that, and then just trim that down onto here. And it's just literally, you know, it's there. I mean, not only does it look pretty, but you've also then reinforced where your spine is, which, you know, that's going to be a vulnerable point because of course, you know, it's going to bend lots and lots of times. Presumably, you know, it wouldn't actually tear anyway because we've covered it with fabric, but, you know, just to kind of like protect it further, that's a kind of good way to do that. And you could also you could also do that here on the front cover, is another strip of lace down here. So that is literally, you know, all I would do that to, you know, to finish that off. So that's that. And then on the front cover, so, you know, let's pretend that this is now actually bound in. Let's just hold it down for a minute. And again, you know, I have shown you tons of times, or, you know, we've done videos tons of times with doing covers, so I won't, you know, bore you here now. But I like to have a whole bunch of toppers ready made, and, you know, we have made these obviously together on video and things, so you've probably seen me or other people, you know, I'm not necessarily saying me, do toppers, you know. So I would grab in a ready-made topper that you could then just pop on, pop on to, sorry, I was just seeing whether that was all one, yeah. Pop on to your journal. I'm not necessarily saying that one, obviously, but and now it's going to be typical that I won't have one in just the right colours, which, oh, well, what were the chances of me having one here in the right colours, to be honest? But I mean, like that doesn't look bad, does it? It's, you know, it's quite pretty. I realise it's pinks and blues rather than pinks and greens really, but I mean, it does look pretty, doesn't it? And, you know, if I did that, then I would obviously try and incorporate maybe some blue inside the journal, or, you know, I'd just think, oh, well, that's fine. The cover's got a slightly different look to the, you know, to the inside of the journal, and that would also be fine. But that is literally how quickly your, you know, your cover is going to kind of pull your journal together. So that's that one. Now I'm just going to move that to the side, and I did say that we would then have a quick look at this one, which is my, you know, my, what I would call the hemmed in fabric. So this is all one sheet of fabric. We did not collage this or anything, it's just one sheet. So what I would do with this one, and it's going to depend on your kind of paper size, but this is a slightly bigger size than A4, this envelope. So obviously, you know, my pages that are A4, if I just bring this in, if you wanted to have an A4 sheet sat into your envelope, let me just move these bits of paper so that I can actually have room to kind of do this properly, demonstrating. Move those bits of paper out the way. All it means is you're going to have an edge around your cover. Now, personally speaking, that doesn't really bother me. You know, I don't think it looks terrible. I don't think it's kind of, you know, unsightly or anything like that. I think it's fine. You would have then, you know, potential that this could kind of, you know, bend in. Again, these are kind of extreme things. No one's going to be sat there doing this with the journal. But these are the types of weird things that go through my head, you know, that I just think, oh, that would kind of like bend up there. They're just things to bear in mind. I'm not saying that they are necessarily an issue, but they are things to bear in mind. But, you know, what I'm saying is you could cover it with the paper like that. And then as a kind of, you know, reinforcer, if you've got this situation going on where your piece of paper is obviously smaller, you could get sort of lace or something, put it down the edge, going across, you know, from your paper to the edge, I'm not necessarily saying this piece of lace is right, but, you know, I'm just kind of showing you. And that is, again, going to strengthen this, what was a vulnerable point. So, you know, there are things that you can do. The other thing that you could do is you could take your piece of paper and you could glue it kind of, say, like, you know, more towards one edge. So let's just say if we glued it more towards the back edge. And then what you could do is say on your, you know, say it's here on the front that you've then got a, you know, gap. If I just pull in, oh, I'm at risk of toppling everything off my desk here. Hold on a second. Oh my goodness, this is like a military operation. Right. Oh, look, that would have gone much better in that other journal, wouldn't it? I'm glad I didn't stitch the signature in, because I would have been really irritated when I then saw this. So what you've got here is like another sheet of paper, and what you could do is then just tear down a portion and kind of like have it as a decorative edge strip. Now, I say tear down because I like the torn edge as opposed to a straight edge. Again, that's going to be, you know, personal kind of choice or personal preference, but I'm just kind of meaning I don't want to do it on this because obviously, you know, I'm kind of thinking, oh, I'm going to put this maybe in that other journal. In fact, I'm just going to put it here now so as I don't forget. So let's just put it like that. Okay, so I mean, how pretty does that look? Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. And again, that's the French collection, backed onto those damask papers. So yeah, this one, again, I don't want to now tear into this because it seems very wasteful to do that, but you could kind of like tear this down and edge that there. The other thing that you could do is, obviously I have used A4 sheets here. You know, you could get scrapbook paper. If you've got like 12 by 12s, they would go closer to the edge of your piece anyway, because this I think is like 11.69, so you're going to have just slightly more with a 12 by 12, you know, so it would go kind of closer to the edge and probably more like to about here. And obviously you could then cut it on the, you know, the height ways, so it's going to fill in more of it. So you have got options to do. Of course you could use sheet music, which again, sheet music often tends to be on bigger pads. So that's another option, is, you know, just take some sheet music or something, or book page. If you've got like a coffee table book or anything, then they often have big pages. Put that in there. And then all I would literally do is I wouldn't go right to the edge, i.e., get this flat piece. I wouldn't go right to the edge, you know, like that, because I actually think that looks rubbish. Or I would make it look rubbish, perhaps I should say. So what I would do is probably step it in slightly, so I have a slight gap around the edge like that. That's because I would make a neater job of doing that than trying to put it right snug against the edge, where then I'm likely to misglue it and I'm probably going to have that happen. So I'm better off kind of avoiding that situation in the first place and just literally step it in by 1 millimeter or so, like that. So you've just got a slight gap. And then all I would do is glue all over the back of my piece of paper that I'm gluing down, paying particular attention obviously to the edges, and then in here where roughly my fold is going to go. So I wouldn't necessarily mark it first, but I would kind of be aware of where that fold's going to go. Extra glue there, so I will have glue all over, but just an extra, you know, extra amount here, and an extra amount around obviously, you know, the very edges of the paper. And then I would just glue it down like that. I would use Fabri-Tac personally, because that's going to be really good at gluing it over the top of the fabric. Obviously you could use other glues. I know that in the past, you know, before I came across Fabri-Tac, not that I came across it, you know, I was obviously, you know, recommended it by other YouTubers. I don't mean me personally. I mean, I just saw other YouTubers recommending it. I don't mean someone, you know, reached out to me specifically. But yeah, I would use tacky glue, because in the past I've used that with fabric and it's absolutely fine. It works fine. So that's all I would do. And then obviously once I've glued it in place, I would fold it over. Again, squish it down nicely with your bone folder or your scissor handles, and then probably reinforce down that spine again with the lace. I mean, actually, how gorgeous does that look, to be honest? I mean, you know, that's just chucked on there. That piece of paper is chucked on there. This lace is chucked on there. And I did say, didn't I? Well, I'm not sure about any of those things, but actually, don't they look really nice together, all those colours? They look really, really pretty, don't they? And that way you've reinforced your spine and you've also covered up, you know, your cover. And that is literally it. And then I would do my signature, just as we talked about doing with the other journal. So exactly the same formula, kind of, you know, obviously different papers, but, you know, different, the same formula. And then obviously stitch them into my journal and, you know, get decorating it that way. And then, of course, once you've done it, I'm just going to kind of turn this over. I'm not folding it in yet, just because I haven't, you know, put anything on the inside yet. But you could then obviously take, you know, if you've got some ready-made toppers and things, again, decorate your front cover up with some of your toppers. I mean, look at how stunning they look, to be honest. And they're just literally chucked on there. You know, I've not picked out specific ones or anything like that. I've just randomly taken, you know, a couple of different ones. And they, you know, they pretty much all look pretty good on there, don't they? So, yeah, love most of those on there, actually. Which, I mean, goes to show how worth having all these toppers this is, doesn't it? Because don't they just look absolutely gorgeous? So yeah, that is basically it. Now, like I say, if I had a nice big piece of velvet or something, you could also put like velvet, or, you know, any fabric. It doesn't have to be velvet. I'm not sure really why I'm waffling on about velvet, but just because I do remember that particular journal is just the red one that really is sticking in my mind. I absolutely loved how it looked. And yeah, unfortunately, I haven't got any other big bits of velvet now to be able to use. But, you know, that did look very, very, very striking. So you could obviously do that. And I would do that exactly the same as we talked about with this piece of paper. Glue it down, paying particular attention to the edges, particular attention to where the fold goes. Pop that in. And then you're going to decorate it up, obviously, with your, you know, your pockets and your, you know, your ruffles, your lace and what have you. So, I mean, if I just kind of lay a couple of things down in here just to, you know, just to show you how this is going to look. So pretend we've got our signature stitched in like this. I mean, you know, this is being thrown together. So this is not a, you know, not a kind of, oh, I don't know, well thought out thing or anything like that. So just looking behind me to see if I've got some bits and pieces ready made. So, okay. Not that, because that's too big. But, for example, here, just got a pocket, and then you could put that on there. You know, I mean, these are, I'm not necessarily saying the right pieces, but, you know, just I've grabbed some bits in just to kind of show you how that's going to then come together and how it's going to look. So I've got actually a couple of my fun photos. Let's try those on there. So like that. I mean, how gorgeous does that look? And to be honest, you know, we are literally throwing this together. You know, I'm not spending time thinking, oh, what's going to look nice or anything like that. We're literally chucking stuff down. You know, that just happens to be laying behind my desk. But hopefully that can really, you know, demonstrate how quickly you can bring your journal together. If you've got your ready-made bits, you've got your ready-made covers, you've maybe got your ready-made toppers, you know, that's kind of, yeah, that's going to be kind of the foundation for your journal. So, yeah, I hope that you found it useless. It was just a bit of a whistle-stop, you know, how to use your ready-made covers. Like I say, I haven't done the journal binding because I have done that, you know, several times before. So I didn't want to kind of just bore everyone by doing that again. But hopefully this has been, you know, good enough to be able to get you started and, you know, give you the confidence to get started and put your journal together. So yeah, I really hope that you got something from this, found it useful, and yeah, I really hope that you have fun if you decide to make some journal covers or make your first journal maybe, or you know, whatever. If you're a seasoned journal maker and you've just listened to me waffle on, I hope it wasn't too tedious. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks then. Bye.